Welcome everyone to a very exciting event that we have today. It's the after effects of Microsoft Build 2022. We're having a bit of an after party where we're actually going to have a look at what's these new developments with the Power Platform in particular. As you can see on screen that the Power Platform has evolved a little already. So there's new logo, there's even new Power Pages, and there's many other things that came out of Build 2022. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually play some of the content from Build 2022 that introduces some of these new concepts, and we'll discuss what sort of how exciting it is and what sort of effects and impacts that we can use these new developments on moving in our own journeys in the Power Platform. So to take it away, I might hand over to Bill, who will start playing the first video, I think. Bill?
Hello, welcome, and we're so excited you could join us today. We're part of the Microsoft Power Platform organization. I'm Sanya Singh, and I lead the Power Pages product team.
And I'm Ryan Cunningham. I lead the Power Apps product team here at Microsoft. We've got some huge announcements for the low-code platform to share with you at this whole event at Build. Number one, the announcement of Power Pages as a standalone product, very exciting, and the ability to auto-generate low-code applications straight from design files and images. We've got some great demos in depth on each of those things, but for a minute, let's actually step back and look at what's happening in the low-code market and why are we really focusing on it as developers. Well, it turns out that this entire space is on the cusp of a lot of change. Gartner says that 70% of new applications developed inside the enterprise will be built on low-code or no-code platforms by 2025. That is a massive amount of change that's about to happen in this business over the next few years, and we've got to be ready for it.
We are already seeing a ton of momentum. The pace at which customers are rolling out low-code solutions, including external-facing portals on Power Platform, is skyrocketing exponentially into millions. This is something Satya shared earlier this year. Power Apps has emerged as the clear leader in low-code, no-code tools. And that growth isn't just being driven by novices and citizen developers. Increasingly, we are seeing mission-critical solutions being built by people with expertise in their business and professional developers coming together, innovating together, and adopting the same platform to innovate much faster.
Let's talk about Hearing Australia as just one example of an organization that's getting a lot of value from low-code. Now, this organization is the largest provider of audiology services that are funded by the government in the entire continent of Australia. And that means that their frontline workers need a lot of help and they need good tools. In fact, Hearing Australia, using Power Platform, has been able to build purpose-built, professional-looking mobile apps for those frontline audiologists that save them really valuable time in the field and build their situational awareness. So they know what they need to be aware of as they go into each of these communities, saves them hours of prep and pre-work, and means they can spend a lot more time with patients. But that's not all. Those mobile apps are built on top of a powerful data platform and integrated with back office tools and applications that have also been developed in the organization, which means that every employee can stay up to date on exactly what they need to know across locations, across devices, across patients, and really replacing a lot of the processes that used to be incredibly manual, stuck in spreadsheets, email chains, manual meetings, and more, all of it getting automated in software now because of low code, but not just because of the technology of low code, but the interaction and relationships that it makes possible. Particularly the partnership between software developers and people who have expertise in what it means to be an audiologist. In fact, in this case, the story starts with Jackie Peck, who herself spent years as a frontline audiologist and hearing expert, knows better than anyone what it means to make the life of that type of worker more productive and efficient. And Jackie was able to find Power Platform, become proficient in it, build the first iteration of many of these solutions on her own. But that's not where the story ends. Hearing Australia has a development team in IT, and developers like Dennis Liang, senior dev in that group, able to figure out what Jackie is doing and come help. Come figure out how to take that back-end data logic to the next level, figure out how to optimize performance of particular applications. And together, Jackie and Dennis were able to really start transforming the entire way this organization operates. And that's been really impactful for Hearing Australia. It's got visibility even of their top leadership. The CIO said, this is an exciting new way to work. It's made a big difference in how an organization like this innovates.
What Jackie, Dennis, and Mike are doing at Hearing Australia is something that's happening across countless organizations globally. Team members with different technical fluency, from business users to pro developers, are embracing low-code as an essential toolkit and a new way of working. A way of working that really shortens the loop between developers and business people, where everyone can work in the same tools together. As in Hearing Australia, people who understand what it means to better serve a hearing patient, they have a seat at the table with the developers co-creating the solution. And developers no longer have to build everything from ground up. They can use a mature planet-scale platform to go a lot faster. Write the code where it's most needed. That means more progress faster with more consistent outcomes across the board.
So, Yaman, I think you're on mute.
Sorry.
That's the end of our first video.
So what does everyone think? What do you think about the application that Hearing Australia has used?
So I reckon that obviously the challenge in a lot of this is that, they're early adopters, and early adopters have support from people like Microsoft, so they can obviously showcase those sort of solutions at the events like this. So I think, you do have to take that sort of in mind. But look, I think the idea here is again, it's a matter of, when can we get access to it? When can we start playing with it? There's going to be plenty of solutions out there for it. I mean, it obviously looks easier than it's probably going to be, but again, it's always exciting. But, when are we going to get access to it?
I think it also proves that companies in Australia, big companies and small business, are picking this up now. Like they were talking about the growth and the 70%, and a lot of people, summarize it, well, that's just happening in America. Well, no, it's not. It's here in our own backyard, and growing fast.
Well, because when it's included in things like Microsoft 365, curiosity, no doubt, will be, well, what do these buttons do? And they're going to discover these new buttons, which is the Power Automate, the Power Apps, and Power Virtual Agents, and then they're going to search for it, find content of their own, discover themselves. There's no stopping anyone now trying to explore and discover on their own, because there's a lot of content out there if you know how to look for it, and it's not that hard. I noted that Hearing Australia is actually based up in Macquarie University, so I imagine that it's got both some university and government backing to help innovate anything to do with the Power Platform, or just anything to increase the approachability and accessibility for people seeking their services. So this can only be a good thing for them. But yeah, when does this sort of capabilities filter down to other people? Well, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, but what about the fact that if large companies are using it, that means lots of people are coming in contact with it, doesn't it? And as more and more large companies use it, more and more people come in contact with it, and thus it's easier for us at a lower level to point at things within Australia in particular is good. And also, I wonder, like, if you look at those stats, and we've seen already for years that Microsoft's pushing the Power Platform, how long before they actually start advertising in a way that end users, businesses, etc., are going to see the advertising and start getting cluey on the fact that this exists, not necessarily from their IT provider, but from just general Microsoft pushing it.
Well, I think the other thing, the other thing too to consider here is I will almost guarantee you that maybe Microsoft had a large hand in getting it up and running for the time period for build. But I would suggest to you that Hearing Australia sees the opportunity for them to, maintain, develop, expand, improve the app. So I think that's a big thing too, is yes, Microsoft may have had a major hand initially developing it, but if you're Hearing Australia, it's like, well, hang on, once this is up and running, we're not going to have to do a lot of work, and we can probably do a lot of it ourselves as well. So I think that's another thing to consider. And the people before, I mean, how long would it have taken for Hearing Australia to go out to tender and do this and do that and whatever? And now, they've managed to get a solution which they can probably maintain and extend.
Well, from the video, it sort of showed that whether he was an in-house developer or whatever, but the one developer and then the one citizen developer that they call, who's basically the person that is, wants to try and help with the design and the look, the feel, the functionality of it.
Yeah. Well, when you've got an internal person who understands the audience, understands the customers, understands the business, and probably the processes that go to run it, well, who are better to help?
It helps, doesn't it?
I think the other thing too is, don't forget, is these people have probably moved from environments with multiple servers and multiple applications, and now they're beginning to consolidate onto a standardized Microsoft platform and stack, which means all of these integrations is where it's going to win. So we can automate this and connect to this database, and we can do this to our emails. And I think that's a big thing too, is that integration on a consolidated stack is just saves so much development time.
Yeah, and if you add that to, Rob, in the past, it would take a year to replace a large system.
Exactly.
So integration or not, but now it doesn't take a year to replace. So you come into this new integrated environment, and all of a sudden it's not costing you a fortune or a large amount of time in order to replace some legacy system that's not really up to scratch anymore.
The other thing too is not only that is I think one of the other things which is really enticing is you get when they develop it, it's the latest and the greatest. It's the moving maps. It's the whole modern interface, all the modern, it's the cutting edge of software development. It's not like something you develop and the world's moved on and now we need to redo it in some other language and some different look and feel. Again, they're getting access to bleeding edge technology, but in a completely simplified manner.
Yeah, and it's exciting to the end user. Like, that's what I've found with the apps that I've developed so far is like you talk them into it, but then when you start showing them and they can access it on their phone or wherever they happen to be, I mean, just that over the top of what a legacy app can do, it just makes them excited about what they can do in the future.
Well, I think the big change is everybody, most businesses today realize that software and IT is the cornerstone of their business, right? But I think most people don't understand IT. They're afraid of it, and again, they feel that they're not in control of that part of their business. They're beginning to abdicate. I think there's a feeling of abdication of many users, that they're giving away a lot of their business to IT companies, developers, software applications, whereas the Power Platform is allowing them to infuse their own unique approach to business and build the stuff themselves, which they're the ones that really know their processes.
A very WYSIWYG approach. I mean, we know what WYSIWYG did to just simple applications like Word and Excel when people just go and do their own thing. Well, now we're doing that with a development platform, and it's just so powerful.
And I think the other thing too is to remember the demand. It's not everybody, all businesses have a demand for more software, for more systems. For there's so much out there that people want to do, creativity wise and business wise, and they're stuck. Who do I get? How much does it cost? I mean, we've all heard of development programs that have cost the world and gone nowhere. So I think that's another intimidating factor, that many businesses look at it and say, no, I would never do that because, I've got no guarantee outcome. But when it rests sort of in your court, I think there's a much greater confidence in that.
Yeah. And when you can get something that, it might not be 100% of what you want, but up and running so quickly, it takes that sort of bit of a worry about how long is this going to take, and is it going to take forever out of the picture.
And that's why And that's why the world's greatest development tool is Excel. It's because Excel is such an easy tool to use. People use that, pick it up. There's not that intimidation. And most of the world, to be honest, still runs on a spreadsheet.
Very much so. What's up next video, Bill? I think we should.
Yep. So I'll share the next one because we started sort of talking about some of the aspects of it as well anyway, because it talks a bit about our sort of shared developer type environment. So let's have a look at the next one.
While you're getting, what's it coming up? While you're getting that up, Bill, they will talk about it after.
Lost it.
So while you're getting that up, Bill, what I was going to say was that even developing a prototype, you know, to show management and execs can be a very quick task to achieve that. All right, fire away, Bill.
No worries.
And the Microsoft stack is built for this level of collaboration. This isn't just about the low-code tools on the top. It actually starts at a powerful data layer. You know, all of the productivity data in Microsoft Graph, all of the structured business data in Dataverse, which itself is, you know, a managed abstraction of many low-level Azure services, Azure Synapse for best-in-class analytics. You know, all of that wrapped together and integrated with great cloud services in the PaaS layer. You know, Azure API management, Azure Functions for serverless code, you know, all of that coming together and integrated as well with world-class developer tools. You know, let me manage my source control in GitHub. Let me write my code in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. All of that integrated with Power Platform as that next layer of abstraction on top. So a citizen developer, somebody with a background like Jackie's, can be productive in the same set of tools that a professional developer, somebody like Dennis, can use at any layer of the stack. And that is how these things really come together and start to drive velocity. Now, if we zoom into the Power Platform layer specifically, you know, this is not just about one tool for mobile apps or one tool for websites. It's really a holistic low-code solution that brings a lot of this high velocity, high abstraction to every part of app development. You know, it's one thing to make the frontline worker's job easier by replacing paper with a mobile app. But that also starts to feed data into a structured backend of Microsoft Dataverse, which itself is integrated with great business intelligence tools like Power BI. So now I can start to ask and answer much more interesting questions about how the business is operating. That leads to opportunities for automation. You know, how can I make that human more productive with an automation in Power Automate or a virtual agent developed in Power Virtual Agents? And so this whole system working together is what really starts to drive velocity. And now this set of capabilities is getting even richer with the introduction of Power Pages.
I'm super excited to announce Power Pages, the newest member of the Microsoft Power Platform family. At the core, Power Pages is an enterprise-grade website development and hosting platform. You can leverage it today for its no-code and pro developer capabilities to design, build, and launch business data-centric websites to reach your customers, partners, and the communities you serve. Through these websites, you can securely give access to relevant business data and information they need 24/7 and streamline processes with them to gain efficiencies. And you'll have peace of mind with the most reliable, secure, battle-tested hosting platform that organizations and governments around the world are leveraging today to launch government-to-citizen services, business-to-consumer, business-to-business services at scale. Let's see a demo of Power Pages in the context of Hearing Australia. But first, let me set up the context. Hearing Australia wants to better support their frontline healthcare workers. Nurses like Marie, who you'll meet in the demo, uses specialized hearing diagnostic equipment to provide hearing checks to young children in the community. This equipment requires regular maintenance, calibration, and repair. Today, this end-to-end process involving frontline workers like Marie and several outside partners is done entirely via emails and spreadsheets. It's cumbersome, error-prone, and slows down the process of getting working equipment to communities that need it. Now, in order to solve this problem, Jackie, the business expert, and Dennis, the professional developer, want to work together and leverage Power Pages to build a secure website that Marie can access from her phone to get to the equipment details and streamline the service request process with the partners. Let's take a look at the demo. It has two parts. First up, we're going to see the website that citizen and professional developers have come together to build for nurses like Marie to use. And later, we're going to see how they built the website using Power Pages. Here you can see Marie, the nurse, access the website from her phone. During a checkup visit, Marie logs in to the website to troubleshoot an equipment that is not working. She's directed to this web page that shows a list of all the equipments she has access to, where she can scroll through the list, or she can search for the device by serial number and filter the list down. She finds the equipment record she's looking for, and she proceeds to view details. In this equipment details page, she sees a rich set of all the information she needs. She sees the images of the equipment, links to device manuals, and this gallery of several how-to training videos. She goes through frequently asked questions to troubleshoot. She also reviews historical maintenance done on the device. Through all of this rich data, she confirms that the device has too much distortion, so she needs to file a support request to get the device repaired. She can easily do that by starting a service request from the same page. She's presented with an easy-to-use service request form where she enters all the details that is needed to submit for repair to the technical partners. Upon submission, she gets confirmation that the technical partner will be notified on her behalf. She can now see that her request is in progress, and she can log in anytime into this website to check status.
Well, that looks pretty exciting. I'd be keen to see what, how easy it was to develop something like that. Obviously, that is obviously the finished product. So I'd be really keen to see how it actually starts being put together from a low code approach point of view. But they're using the right words. It's a holistic system. It's they battle test it, which means you're bringing enterprise grade things to any business whatsoever, small or large. So, what do you guys think?
I thought it looks very similar to Power Apps, especially on the page, you know, the page layout, the page, the way they'd put the actions on it. And, you know, even with the gallery that she'd set up. So I'm going on that, you know, if you've created a few Power Apps, creating some web pages with Power Pages will be very similar and a very similar feel.
Yeah, and our next video is going to show us how they did it. Going to dive in behind it, but it's very interesting how you sort of have the app that's working on a web page, isn't it? So it really is like a Power App on a web page, and another idea for how you distribute your Power App to customers is going to be users are going to be out in the field. Do you really have to give them a mobile app, or can you just give them a web page to log into?
A mobile page. That's right.
Which making installation non-existent, which is brilliant.
Yep. Well, that's what we see when we see things like WordPress pages now. It's all scalable for whatever device that you see it on, and this would just be very, very similar. Like I said, if you bring down the actual content input and things to make it such easy to do for the low code or low tech user, then it can only be a good thing.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the pricing works, but if it fits into the new model with the Azure pay-as-you-go, and so you don't have to buy an expensive license necessarily, you can do a bit of pay-as-you-go to see how much it's going to cost you, and if you're a low volume consumer, it may turn out to be a solution now, whereas before the portals are always concerned about how much it was going to cost. So it'll be interesting to see how the pricing goes, because it is a website after all, not just the A page that you log into that you're now effectively replacing, it would seem.
We'll wait and see on the pricing, hold our breath a little bit. But no, I do agree that the Azure pricing model on consumption, well, that's brought a lot into small business, even with our virtual agents and Power Apps, and potentially this Power Pages, because I'm pretty sure the old portals was quite expensive, and I don't know, I haven't seen any real small business using it. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, because the old portal pricing was based on a user being charged for a whole day's use, no matter whether they used it for 5 minutes or were using it all day. So it'll be interesting to see if this is a little bit different to the way it goes. But you notice the emphasis, and it kind of comes back to something Rob said earlier about integration. You know, are you going to build, using the other tools that are available for building a website now if you're a business? Or are you going to use this tool, even if it might not be quite so sophisticated as yet as those other tools, like WordPress and stuff, but allows you to integrate with the rest of your tools? You know, you provide this interface to the workers that are out on site, but it integrates back into the same data and databases, the model-driven app that you've built for the admin people to use to keep the data up to date.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, none of this having to worry about APIs and feeding stuff into other systems and dragging data from one place to another in order to make a web interface work with real data anymore. So,
well, that's the main name. It's all been about holistic, and we've seen that with other things with Microsoft 365, especially in Teams. Now we can add on and integrate other things that you're already using, make it all accessible, make it so that you can reuse it in other applications without having to double the work.
yeah.
So this would be very much that.
With it all being under the one stack, all of the security that you set up for one filters through to the entire lot.
That's right.
I think also the other thing too is to look at as the interface, right? So obviously the interface is the key component to integrate or work with the user, the end user, and having a web interface is great. Don't get me wrong, it's really good, but the real cutting edge UI is on mobile devices, and we've all seen good ones, we've all seen bad ones, right? But if you can get a really good UI with the right buttons, not too big, not too small, I think that makes a huge difference on any application, especially when it comes to adoption. So I think focusing on the mobile makes a lot of sense, and really perhaps thinking of developing mobile apps first and then doing the desktop-y stuff afterwards. So you start with a constrained model of what you can actually put on the screen. I think generally you end up with better applications, more well thought out by starting that way.
Yeah, I think though, Rob, and I might be getting this wrong because that you, bit like your Power Apps, you can develop these web interfaces with the mobile in mind first. If that's the way you think it's going to be consumed most.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is to instead of what you find is most applications are developed generally with the desktop in mind. There aren't a huge amount of apps that really start out as mobile only. I think again that's really where the focus should be.
Yeah, but that's especially what I'm saying. You'll find that these Power Pages, and I think we get into the detail of it. You can choose what format. Like I want to develop this Power Pages site with the mobile in mind, and you do all your development in that format, the size, the mobile shape format.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that's where you should start.
That's your developing, yeah. So I kind of agree with you. You should start with it being in that format, but you no longer have to do a Power App that's an app necessarily. Because the thing that worries me is the average user. Like I've used the Power Apps that are apps, and there's still got the issue when you republish. It's not so much when you put the first one out, but when you want to make updates and republish and things like that, there can be issues with making sure you're using the most up-to-date app and stuff, whereas in the web interface, it's just automatic, isn't it? more or less. So if it's been designed, like you said, for a mobile screening, and it'll be, I think.
Well, I think
that's
the
what
thing
it's
is,
gonna be. So,
again, you know, typically to design a mobile app, a decent mobile app, you've needed developers or you've outsourced to developers overseas. But now the citizen developer, you know, who really knows the process they want to create, can get that same,
can you get that?
you know,
Yes, that's right.
get that
Yeah.
same innovation, get that same buzz of making it a mobile app and seeing it on their phone. And I think
Oh,
it's more real for a citizen developer to see their results on their phone that they can show off to other people than on a screen.
oh yeah, and that's so exciting. And like you said, show off. Like everyone's got their phones with them, and if they've developed something or they're using something from work that's been developed in that way, they can show people. It's no matter where they are. And so it's does in today's modern world particularly allow for that sort of FOMO to build a bit more quickly. And that is what people get excited about when you produce something for them, is the fact that they can see it on their tablet or their phone. They're no longer restricted to their Windows desktop in order to use their stuff.
Well, it's
amazing.
achievable, and it's easily achievable. I mean, if you had said, you know, even 2 years ago, I want to create an iPhone app, what are you starting at? 10 grand? You get what I mean? Like, but I mean, the conversation didn't even exist because of the frightening cost of it, sort of thing. So, and now people in the organisations are developing it themselves or starting it. It looks like, from what I can work out, they sort of started or get an idea, and then, you know, either talk to their IT team or the developer team, and work together to make it happen.
Well, that's exactly right. So, how about we actually see how Hearing Australia kind of made some of this magic work with the new Power Platform developments? Bill, do you want to cue up the next video and let's see?
Now let's just see how this business data-centric website was built using Power Pages. When you navigate to Power Pages homepage, you see all the websites that you've created or are collaborating with others. You can access the Templates Hub to browse through a rich set of out-of-the-box high-value templates like scheduling, registration, and many more to start your website making journey. Navigate to Learn Hub as your go-to place to access how-to videos, articles that will guide you through different stages of design, build, configure, and launching of your website. Let's head back to Power Pages' homepage and open up the portal website in the Design Studio where the team has been collaborating. Power Pages' Design Studio has 4 workspaces: Pages, Styling, Data, and Setup. This first workspace, Pages workspace, is where you add and build web pages. On the left navigation pane, you can see all the pages that make up the site. You can build professional-looking web pages by adding several components like text, images, videos, and make inline changes to get to the look and content you want. The next web page uses more advanced component like this business data list that the dev team built in Data Workspace. This particular business data list was built on a table to display all equipment that the website users have access to. The second workspace is the styling workspace. Here, you can apply site-wide color and font styling. You can start from several themes out of the box, where teams tweak colors and fonts definition to match the organization's brand. The third workspace is the data workspace. Here's where you model business tables, data that you collect and share through the websites with your customers and partners. For example, you can see several equipment-related business tables that were modeled using this powerful no-code table designer you see on the right. Once the tables are modeled, you can design the forms and lists and views on these tables and add them to the web pages. And finally, in the setup workspace, you can do several site configurations, including setting permissions to who has access to what business data through this table permission experience. Here you can set permissions for each business data table to allow specific user roles to have access to it on the website. Next, let's dive a little deeper into equipment's detail page that has advanced capabilities. For that, I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code. Using Visual Studio Code extensions, as a developer, I can download the entire website content. You can see site content, including forms, lists, web pages, nicely structured in YAML and HTML, making customization intuitive for me as a developer. Let's take a look at 3 advanced customizations that I've done. Here, you can see Power Pages' web APIs to dynamically query a Dataverse table to fetch equipment details based on the user-entered serial number. Then, based on that, I can display all the equipment details dynamically, like the image descriptions of the equipment on the web page. In the second customization, we're going to see how the custom gallery control that shows how to training videos was added to the web page. This control I created in React, where you can see how the control gets added and is populated by video information that's stored in Dataverse in the equipment training table. And lastly, all the CSS styles I've captured in one custom file that allows me to link it to this web page. Let's head back to the Design Studio where I can go and sync all the changes I made in Visual Studio Code. Once everything is synced up, I can test the advanced capabilities that I built by previewing the site either in desktop or in mobile by scanning this QR code. So let's recap what we saw in the demo. There are 4 key capabilities that you can rely on with Power Pages. The first one we saw was a low-code website design studio, where you can create and style your websites. But more importantly, you can model and design business data tables, forms, and lists using powerful table designers, form designers, view designers, and add them to your websites. Second, we saw best-in-class ProDev tooling that you use to extend, customize, and implement advanced web experiences and business logic. Third, a robust, scalable, enterprise-grade website hosting platform built with security and compliance. And lastly, you can extend the Power Pages business solutions to drive end-to-end innovation by leveraging all other 4 services of Power Platform. Power Apps to create internal apps based on the data that you're getting from your sites, automate your workflows through Power Automate and robotic process automation, build analytics using Power BI, and Power Virtual Agent for intelligent bot experiences, all built on Microsoft Dataverse, Power Platform's business data and logic service layer. We also saw in the ProDev tooling in Visual Studio Code how professional developers can build custom controls like the gallery we saw of how-to videos that was built in React and easily added to the website. Dynamically query the business data through our data layer and APIs. Style the web pages with pixel-perfect custom CSS style sheets. And we have enterprise-grade ALM for continuous integration and deployment with GitHub and Azure DevOps.
Wow, that's just amazing what's now possible with Power Pages.
Low code to a certain extent, it looks like, but you're still going to need for some of that extra finessing, some coding skills of some kind. Maybe less so than if you did a full-on development project, but I still see that when you talk about React, when you talk about a few of the other terms, that you still need someone with some, at least some knowledge and skills to actually apply some of the more integrated aspects, or to make something look or work and feel much better. But as you can see, we can see a lot of the concepts that we've already dealt with Power Apps, even to produce a more basic version of what they've achieved here. What do you guys think?
The other thing is, I mean, is like it's still very early as well. So some of the fancier stuff or fancier formatting may require a bit of pro developer now. But I'm absolutely certain that, like in other environments for doing this similar kind of thing, Microsoft will take on or even develop their own templates and things where a lot of that pro developer type stuff is built into the template, perhaps even with parameters that you can adjust, and there'll be less and less need for pro developer stuff as we go forward, is what I reckon, until you get into something quite complex where you have to potentially still bring your pro developer in. But Rob, accessing APIs, it pretty much means we can do anything again in this space the moment you start mentioning that, doesn't it? So.
Well, I was going to say, it's like anything. I mean, even in Power Automate, you know, it's quite simple, but then when you need to write a function, and, you know, as Robert was experiencing, trying to get 2 decimal places, and instead of bringing it back as a float, it came back as a text. And, you know, it does have some sort of complex to it. But, and once again, even in your Power Apps, when you're sort of writing functions behind buttons or behind actions, you do, it's low code. As I say, it's low code, not no code. So, you know, a little bit of coding background never hurts.
No, and the more people that play around in this space and develop their skills, then there's definitely a wider community. I mean, we're a part of it, where people are sharing their knowledge. Or, I mean, look at the fact that a lot of it's in GitHub, for example. You can pretty much Bing search your way or Google search your way through to find an possible answer to some of your problems, or
100%.
to make something work. So,
no, I search for a lot of things, a lot of things. And, but yeah, like the Microsoft Learn helps, the Microsoft support platforms, and even like our own user group, you know, where we assist others, you know, that require some assistance and, you know, where they get stuck somewhere. There's a lot of help out there.
yes, very much. On that, what's the next video, Bill? Nope, looks like
Yeah, he's just gone for. Here we go.
But let's shift gears a little bit and actually start to talk about another big announcement this week for low code, and particularly the introduction of Express Design, the ability to auto-generate apps from design files and images. You know, a lot of the context here is that the time-consuming parts of software and the expensive parts of software aren't just about the coding. They're not just about the software. They're about all the human interactions around software. You know, a lot of projects, a lot of applications, they don't start at file new project in an IDE. They start with a problem. They start with an idea, and then that evolves forward into a design. So that's why we're so excited to introduce this new concept of Express Design. You know, take any of those existing inputs, whether it's an image or a PDF or a design file, and automatically generate low-code applications in just a few clicks. And we're particularly excited about the ability to do that in the integration with Figma, where so much software today is designed and sort of born, but then often has a much harder process handing off to be replicated in code. And so to show us how that works and to get into the details of it, there's really nobody more qualified than a designer herself. And for that, we're going to go hand it to Alana Robinson, who leads product design for the Power Apps Studio, you know, and herself is an expert in tools like Figma. Alana, can you show us how all this works?
Thanks, Ryan. As you can imagine, most user-friendly solutions don't start with a development backlog. They begin with a problem statement and a design. And as a designer, I will work with the business groups to understand those users' needs and challenges and design experiences that meet those expectations. It can be challenging and time-consuming for developers to replicate the same UI from the design tool over to the app development platform. So now, with Express Design, I can create those designs using the Power Apps control kit in Figma, like I do today with my other UI libraries in Figma, and I can convert that design to a functional app in moments, which saves the development team so much time and process. For example, here I am designing the app for Hearing Australia. I've named the frames Home, Info, and Form, but now I need to go in and add a Submit button to complete this page. I can go over to the Assets pane, see all of the components, which are showing the list from the Power Apps insert menu, grab a Power Apps button component with the exact properties of a real Power Apps button control, and I can place it here to complete the designs. Now, let's go over to Power Apps. You'll see a few new tiles on the homepage. One of them is Start from Figma, and we'll click that. We'll go ahead and name the app, plug in the Figma details, which pulls directly from that file that I was just working on, and we'll select a phone layout. In a few moments, the app is auto-generated, saving a ton of back and forth between the designer and developer. Let's make sure everything came in as expected. Yep, it is exactly as I laid it out in my Figma file, right down to the pixel. Let's go over to the page navigation, and you can see the home, info, and form pages are just like the frames I had in my file. It's amazing that as a designer, I can leverage my existing skills to accelerate that app development process. And I can save time by using the tools I already use. Plus, I have more control over that built experience, ultimately serving the needs of the end users better. Now I'll hand this over to the developer team to make sure that the data is hooked up correctly. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Alana. That is just so cool how quickly we can generate an application out of a design file. But now,
that is pretty good looking.
Sounds a bit too good to be true.
Mind you, we did require Microsoft's help to enable that sort of thing for here in Australia, I noticed. But look, we're trying to showcase that in the space of relatively ease. Let's say even 3 or 4 minutes, you've generated at least something that's visible, and that in itself is pretty powerful. But we've seen that with the Power Platform. You can always create something very quickly to showcase something, and then you build on that.
Yes, well, and that's where creating a scope, to show to management or board on what you potentially can create or want to create, how it's going to look, how it's going to feel, is done quickly. Whether it puts everything in exactly the right spot, we'll wait and see. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I will be checking that out. And but it, it's definitely makes it easier to start creating your own templates.
And Andrew, we've talked in the past about how you deal with that first phase, and at the moment we were always talking about, well, we've got to get to this prototype idea, which means you're actually building in a Power App in order to show the customer. This kind of concept almost makes you want to learn how to use Figma.
Yes.
And use a design tool to develop it, because the app's not far away. If you're doing that, and that's kind of a cool concept, because I'm sure as a design tool, it's probably got things built into it that make it easier to do those kind of design things and adjust them around and stuff like that. That the app is often means a slightly more complex set of things to make it happen.
Maybe just having that look and feel aspect come alive very quickly to not only management who make decisions about whether to go ahead with a project, right down to even the end users who potentially could be using the finished product, does make that very, very attractive. And even if you don't have something very sophisticated, but even as a small business, if you sold them you can just sketch something out and you could instantly turn it into at least a simplistic app, and you didn't have to spend thousands of dollars on development. That would be in itself very attractive, very, very attractive. Yes, it looks like I'm on learn Figma just based on that alone. I guess we'll see a little bit more about what's in the extra magic.
I want to use it. I want to use it. I want to see it. I want to test it.
Yeah, so I've got to go find out where you get it from now.
All right, what do we got next?
So yeah, we're waiting for Bill to queue up, but here we go.
But now that the application is built and set up and all the components and controls are here right in the Power Apps Studio ready for us, now as a developer, there's a lot more that I can do to help bring this app all the way to life and bring code to it as well. One of the first things you'll notice if you're new to Power Apps Studio is this isn't just a visual environment. This is very connected to data. In fact, as we open up this data pane here, we see all the structured data in Microsoft Dataverse and more than 600 built-in connectors to existing business systems. Quite literally everything from Adobe to Zendesk. In fact, I can add my own data sources here as well. By registering any custom API managed anywhere with a REST endpoint on the planet, I can bring it right into Power Platform and start to use those services as well. In fact, here I've got a custom service I've registered and it's showing up. I can add to my app for address verification and bring it in just like that, start to use it in this application bound to controls and components. Speaking of controls and components, that same concept of lots of great things out of the box, but being able to bring my own, that exists at the UX layer as well. I can come right here and integrate a custom set of components, import them from a component library. Now I can build those either in code, I can write TypeScript or React components and import them, but now I can also build them in low code. In fact, Power Apps Canvas components now becoming generally available this month. I can import a component like this map control that the design calls for that I've pre-built and preloaded with data and interaction, drop it right here onto the canvas and put it in the app and get ready to roll from that point. Now, the structured data in Power Apps is also really important to how humans interact with things like forms and grids and galleries. And I can pop over here to this next screen and start to bind a table in Dataverse to a form that's been generated out of the Express Design functionality from Figma. So this is no longer just a picture of fields and labels. It's actually now bound to that underlying table in the Dataverse database. It means that every time somebody fills out that form, that data is going to go somewhere that I can work with it later in a structured way. Now, speaking of data going places, this is also an integrated place for orchestration and automation. We mentioned before that Power Platform fully integrated set of tools. Well, I can use Power Automate right in context here as well. We've added that submit button right onto the canvas. Now I can, in a couple of clicks, pull up that full Power Automate experience. I've got all the galleries of templates. Let's say we want to send a push notification to a mobile phone whenever this form is submitted. And I can choose that template and actually start to work with it right in line in the Power Apps Studio, doing visual process automation and orchestration over that same set of more than 600 connected data sources. Just a really powerful set of capabilities all here at my fingertips. And I haven't even had to write a line of real code yet. Now, of course, we do have really powerful embedded support for logic and expressing logic in text. And we can use the language PowerFX. It's a dedicated language for low code, the first of its kind. It's completely open source as well. In this case, I'm going to go bind this button to trigger that flow when it launches using a simple expression. And I'm off to the races. I'm ready to go with this application. So let's save it and publish it and get it moving and start delivering it to users. But look, the last thing to cover here is the speed of low code and the speed of interacting with designers. It's powerful for the first time we build an app. But it's also really powerful as we continue to iterate and update and maintain that app over time. And let's say in a week or a month or a year, we decide we need to add another screen, another component to this application. This is where low code also really starts to shine. I can come back to this app, I can fire up a new screen, and using those same rich components that I've provisioned into the environment as a developer, building a new screen in this app is really just a couple of clicks. I can drop that header component in that we use in other places. I can drop in another one of those great pre-built components for an equipment list. And now I've submitted my app. It's getting updated. My users are happy, and I'm delivering value faster than ever.
Well, this just indicates how important it is to us have got into the ground floor, learning the individual components of Power Platform, so that when they bring in these seamless integrations that looks like it's all one very smooth flowing thing, you still need to know the learning from each of every other component of the Power Platform to make it that holistic experience and make it seem so easy to create the finished product. So I'm really glad that we started learning about this over a year ago.
Yeah, so many of the things mentioned in that last little section aren't necessarily new, although some of them may be just becoming general access. But one thing that excites me a little bit, because we're developing and we're going to be developing over and over again, and potentially wanting to reuse things, is the idea that you can actually create canvas components. And it's quite useful if you're going to have a complex canvas app, so you can turn your headers and footers and things into a component, and then when you create a new screen, you can just pull that component onto the new screen, and it brings all the right characteristics with it to fit on the screen. So within the one app, it can be useful, but it's also going to become useful as we develop components that we want to use again and again amongst different apps as well. That's quite cool, that idea that you'll be able to develop a little bit of sophistication in a bit of a canvas app environment, like an interactive map that they showed there, or other things that you might come up with, and then be able to reuse it without having to remember how you set it all up and in the first place. Pretty cool concept, that one.
No, I agree. That's going to speed up development. It's like a template in a template. You get your template that creates your page for you, and then you create a new page you're not using that exact template, and you're dragging those components across. That will make fluency between, through your app between pages very strong, and the whole look and feel, everything's in the same place. You're not sort of trying to get with a
consistency.
Grid. Yeah, exactly. So you're not having a grid where you're trying to get everything specifically with a mouse, putting it in the same place. So, and what that does, it speeds up your development time tenfold.
Especially if you are a developer creating several series of apps where the core of it may actually be components you've already worked with or developed before. Yeah. So all you have to do is plug them straight in rather than having to necessarily start from scratch.
Yeah. Also, like if you're not quite sure about certain functionality within a certain area, but it's got to be repeated, you can create it as a component, run away and do it, put it wherever it needs to be, and then when you have that discussion with the customer to work out exactly the way it should look and feel, you change the component, republish everything, and there you go. You don't have to worry about where's the 5 places I did this thing and have to go and change it in all 5 places. You change it once and it's going to distribute it across the whole lot. It's quite cool, that idea too. And in that way, it speeds up your development time as well for making changes either during the initial development or later.
It also shows how Microsoft are improving this every day, the entire platform. So they're not just adding features, they're improving the existing Power Apps, Power Automate, by adding those features to use. So, it's important to stay up to date, because, it is a moving, updated product.
As with most ecosystems, they tend to have some sort of organic approach to it. So if something's not happening right now, Microsoft is always, taking feedback, using its analytics to see what people are doing, using, or running into problems with. And, well, they've definitely got the power to actually affect change and make things so much better. So, of course, in their eyes, it makes it so much more approachable to more and more users, more and more customers. So this can only be a good thing, but as always, I think it's easier to get into these sorts of platforms at a earlier stage, so you can see take a peek behind the scenes of what actually it took to get there, so that when you do run into some of these issues or problems out there in the wild when you're doing these projects, then you can get a better understanding from first principles that, okay, well, this is exactly why it doesn't work, and then you can reverse engineer it a little bit and actually solve your problems, for not only for yourself but for others who may not have that sort of experience or skill set to actually solve their problems.
But you can see where Microsoft are headed, in their futuristic, where they're headed in the future sort of thing. I mean, you look at Microsoft Teams, the development of that over the past 12 to 24 months, and the Power Platform is got the same sort of development and improvement at a rate. They want people to use it, that they see it, and I see it, as the future, the way things will be developed, where data is being stored, and how people communicate between each other or with each other.
Yeah. I think
we're going on to the next video while Bill's getting that ready. I see a lot of similarities between Power Apps and and the Pages.
Yes. I mean, to us, it's noticeable, like I said, because we've experienced the individual components that went into it. But to others, you just say, "Oh, look, just the very, very seamless." Yeah. It's a brand new experience for them, and it does just generate that excitement.
Now, one of the amazing things about Express Design is that it's not just Figma files. You can really generate apps from even much less structured inputs, like a static image or a PDF, and get all the same acceleration downstream that we just went through. Today, a shocking amount of business processes are still stuck on paper. They're in printed forms, they're in emailed attachments, and even more software doesn't always get the same level of professional designer attention that would work in a tool like Figma. But now I can take any of those inputs, whether that's a PDF of a legacy form or an image that I drew on a whiteboard, and bring those into Power Apps and get analyzed for the common app elements inherent in those static images, and generate great applications automatically. And that's pretty cool. Behind the scenes, we're pulling this off using a lot of the amazing mature cognitive AI tech that's been really robust and maturing in Microsoft for a long time. In fact, we've trained models in Azure Cognitive Services under the hood to understand common app elements out of those visual images, understand what's a text box, what's a button, but even more importantly, how they fit together, how they group into things like a form and a table, making it really possible to take something that's truly unstructured as an image and generate a data-backed application faster than ever from an input like that. Now, Express Design and Power Pages are just a few of the latest ways that Power Platform is really accelerating the software development cycle for hundreds of thousands of organizations like here in Australia and hundreds of thousands of developers like Jackie and Dennis around the world. The stories of what people are doing as they embrace low code, make it part of their toolkit, are really powerful. They're looking at this platform as just the next layer of abstraction on top of all of the existing great development tools that we've been building for years. That next layer of abstraction that reduces repeated work, adds to the skill set of developers of all types and flavors, and lets people focus the technical energy on the problems that actually matter most and leave the rest to the platform. And the things that people are building here are really, truly impressive.
Well, we've covered a lot, and we so appreciate you staying with us all throughout the session. There are many more low-code and Power Platform keynotes, breakout sessions, and on-demands for you to watch that we can go deeper into, and how you can leverage low-code platform and tools today to have an impact and accelerate your organization's digital transformation journey.
There's definitely no shortage of content here at Build. There's a lot more announcements going on in the rest of the Power Platform as well, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents. But if it's up to us, we definitely recommend you check out the deep dive on-demand sessions on Power Pages and Power Apps to go to even the next level of detail on the things we've covered here today. So thanks again. Have an awesome rest of the conference.
And there is certainly a lot of content. This is just actually one of many, many videos that came out of and sessions that were at Microsoft Build. But of course, these are the two more that seem more user-friendly or more approachable from those who've never experienced the Power Platform before. But
I think it shows a great overview. I think that video that we've just watched there is a great overview of what the whole Power Platform can do, how it integrates together, how you can bring external data in and send it back out, how you can report on it, and how you can display it in an app or in a web page. It's now covering all bases.
Yeah, and I was interested to test out and get good at building web components, not web components, Power App components, Canvas app components from PDFs and stuff, because a lot of small businesses, they are still paper based, and that's the thing that you're trying to help them with. And it's quite interesting to me, that concept of being able to, like, they like to see a form that's not too different to what they're used to, but modernized, and the ability to grab a PDF, feed it into the system, and have it spit out a form that's effectively, with a bit of connecting things up to look what they're used to, is a pretty cool idea.
And I think they're making it easier. I think they're making it easier for us to do it. The AI is incredible on what it can pick up, what you can tell it to do, and then automate things with Power Automate, and away you go.
Yeah.
I just think of, Andrew, like the bit of work we've done without me doing anything for a client yet, but on the AI and reading PDFs. Can you imagine if you got a business that want to automate a process? You can pull that form in, create a app based on it, but also have the form automatically scanned and brought into that form, potentially as part of the app that you build, because the AI would be able to do that as well. So that'd be a pretty cool concept, where you've got the form, scan it, feeds into this app form that you've developed directly from the same formatted PDF, and then using it within the app. But, once again, all this integration happening together to just simply speed up the process of getting an app up and running.
Yep. Or better still, and I'm just thinking out loud here, with your Power Pages, is have a form that your, let's say, customers or suppliers are keying directly into, that then submit the data straight into your database. They're probably more than likely going to feed it into their own system and print it out, but you never know.
It's
Yeah,
just
well,
another one of those possibilities, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. I mean, we've seen that they've already harnessed the power of the AI. I mean, if you've ever, anyone who's used Microsoft Lens, for example, that app, which is now built into the OneDrive app from a Microsoft 365 standpoint, can you imagine just using that simple tool to suddenly from there go straight into feed straight into something like a Figma or a Design Express Design, and just, yeah, I mean, come on, can you imagine that? The magic of half an hour from a piece of paper into an app, unheard of, really.
Well, I guess it's now time for the three of us to get our hands dirty. I was going to say install it, but you don't really install it. Log into our demo tenants that we've set up, and create some demos to display and show the ins and outs and how it all works.
Yeah, very much so. I'm looking forward to showcasing some and deep diving into some of this stuff, and we'll bring that content into our user group and monthly webinars that we are holding through this platform. So please check out the future content that we're producing from this. I'm pretty excited about a lot of it, and because there's so much of it, I'm sure between that and whatever else has been released at Build, I'm pretty sure that it's going to keep us busy for some time yet.
100%.
So what we'll do is, unless Bill, you got other comments? I'm not sure if Rob's got any other comments as well.
I'm not sure what else everyone's saying, but I know I've had a bit of a discussion with Rob with a new feature with the with our Power Virtual Agents, where you're going to be able to speak to them and have them understand speech. So another exciting development for us to get our teeth into and work out how good it is and how useful that might be. Because on people's phones, like let's face it, it's much easier to speak to a phone than using fat fingers to type stuff in. So it could be quite an interesting feature.
What are you saying about my fingers?
Same thing we say about your head.
Thanks, Robert.
No problems. I'm here to help anytime. I think the reality is that it's obviously pleasing to see Microsoft continue to investing in this vertical, and you can see it growing. You can see it growing in the importance. It's probably still relatively early days in SMB. It's a bit of black magic for most people, but certainly the opportunity is there. And again, I think the real reality of it is yes, it is low code, no code, but up to a point, which would then require someone who's a bit more experienced with coding to step in and tidy it up around the edges and do the harder things, as we found and some of the stuff we've done. It can still get down to knowing code. So again, I think it's a great starting point for many people, but at the end of the day, it's still going to require some technical knowledge to really polish it off and make it work for most people, which is fine. There's lots of opportunity in there, and I think that's the important step Microsoft's beginning to take, is recognizing the role that developers or people who write code or the technical people are going to be able to need to step in and pick this up and use it with their own tools. But it's, like I said, very pleasing to see that it is going in that direction, and those tools are being added. It'll make life much easier for everybody.
Yeah, I agree, Rob. And like with most of these kind of things, if you're doing something for yourself, it's often easy to pick it up and work out what you need to do, because you sort of compromise a bit for what you're happy to have based on what your knowledge is. But the moment you start trying to spread something to the wider business, everyone else is going to have their ideas. And if you don't have a little bit of developer knowledge and stuff, you might struggle with implementing other people's ideas or more complex ideas into these systems.
I think what we've found is look, it's all easy. You're charging in, and then there can be that one thing that you just can't work out. You need to reach out to someone or solve. So again, it doesn't remove that. An experience will improve that, but generally there is still going to be that need for that technical knowledge at some point. And I think that's where obviously Microsoft has stepped in to help, Hearing Australia or whatever. So again, I think there's an opportunity for everybody still. And it's good to see Microsoft, I suppose, embracing both sides of the development, which is great.
Yeah, we've seen that there's a collaborative aspect definitely coming to the Power Platform too. We've seen that development over the last year too. So this is all heading in that one direction. So it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, lots of fun. I mean, even in the database, even when you're learning Dataverse, it's a different type of database to normal databases, where it adds its own fields in and is run off the Dynamics structure. But like anything, there's always a bit of a learning curve, So it depends on how steep it is. It's steeper for some than for others. But it's great that everybody can get involved, and work together to achieve.
There's no better place than here, is there?
Indeed.
I think on that note, I can hear my kettle boiling soon. It's time for a virtual cuppa. But as you can see, we have a Power Platform community user group page that we're constantly adding more content to, and we've even got some linking to signing up to our mailing list. So if you sign up, we'll be starting to generate some newsletters, and just to keep everyone in the community or other interested people up to date with what's going on with the Power Platform, or what other call outs for maybe some collaborative efforts. We also have our community YouTube channel. So we've started posting a lot of content, including the monthly webinars. We've broken up into our different demos, as well as our entire webinars. What we're doing recording here probably may end up on this YouTube channel. So please keep checking back with this. channel as we add more and more exciting content to it. So on that note, I think we'll bring this after party to a close. Thank you everyone for joining in today. Our panel here of Andrew, Bill and Robert, and of course myself, Yeoman. And don't forget to check us out. We've got our YouTube channel. We've even got our Twitter account now. And we've also got, as you saw, our Power Platform community website. So come check us out. More content coming. And we'll see you very soon in another user group meeting or a webinar.